The Imperial Fists are one of the first founding chapters of the Space Marines, and were originally the 7th Legion of the Legiones Astartes, raised by the Emperor himself from across Terra during the Unification Wars. The Imperial Fists stand out from other Space Marine chapters since they possess no fixed homeworld, although they are most frequently based on Terra. Instead, the Imperial Fists rely on their 10,000-year-old mobile space fortress, Phalanx, to serve as their fortress-monastery. They maintain recruitment-chapels on various worlds spread throughout the Imperium. A favourite to the Emperor. Part of the Imperial Fist's duties during the Great Crusade were to function as the Emperor's personal praetorians, accompanying him everywhere. The Imperial Fists were usually used to strike a decisive blow against the enemies he confronted during that time. The role of the Emperor's bodyguards, since he was mortally wounded during the Horus Heresy and interred within the Golden Throne at the heart of the Imperial Palace on Terra, has now been entirely taken over by the Adeptus Custodes. But the Emperor's ancient trust remains a potent honour for the Imperial Fists and their successor chapters in the present day. The Imperial Fists are the inheritors of the proud traditions of Primarch Rogal Dorn, his name venerated by countless trillions across the Imperium. History does not clearly record the details of the world on which the infant Dorn was cast when the Primarchs were scattered to the corners of the galaxy. What is known is that he presented himself to the Emperor as the Great Crusade reached the ice hives of Inwit, offering one of the mightiest space-going vessels ever constructed by humans during the Dark Age of technology as a sign of his fealty. The Emperor welcomed his long-lost son into the ranks of the Primarchs and granted him primacy over the Imperial Fists Legion. The Master of Mankind returned Dorn's vessel, called Phalanx, to the Primarch, and it became the base from which Dorn, and sometimes the Emperor himself, commanded some of the most glorious campaigns of the Great Crusade. Dorn and his legion proved the masters of every aspect of warfare, but in particular the Imperial Fists excelled at siegecraft, whether on the attack or the defense. This propelled them into a bitter rivalry with the Iron Warriors Legion and their jealous Primarch Perturabo, the flames of which were wantonly fanned by Fulgrim, the Primarch of the Emperor's Children Legion. Fulgrim is said to have asked Dorn if a fortification of his design could withstand an assault by the Iron Warriors, and Dorn is said to have answered that it could. Perturabo took the answer as a boastful slight, and the seeds of a hatred that would only grow more bitter as the Terran millennia passed were sown. Utmost loyalty. Loyalty in time of betrayal was not easy to measure, for one cannot look at the face of an ally and know if he is truly a friend or an enemy. Even after Horus's treachery was made manifest upon the plains of Istvan III and the Dropside massacre of Istvan V, the truth of who was traitor and who remained loyal was far from clear. In this age of betrayal, one legion stood as a pillar of loyalty amongst the sea of doubt. The Imperial Fists and Rogal Dorn, ever true, never swerving from the toll demanded by a war of brothers, bore the weight of loyalty without breaking, but not without cost. Sacrifice without limit changed those who survived. As fate would have it, Dorn's prediction was put tragically to the test when, at the height of the Siege of Terra, the fortifications he had added to the Imperial Palace were sorely tested by the traitor legions. Though the World Eaters are said to have forced a breach, by sheer bloody savagery rather than any genuine skill at the Siege Master's craft, the War Master Horus fell in combat to the Emperor before the matter could be truly decided. It was only when the Imperial Fists and the Iron Warriors confronted one another in the hateful battle known as the Iron Cage, in the days immediately after the heresy, that both were able to give full vent to their rivalry. Accounts of what took place within the Iron Cage differ, and, to this day, both the Iron Warriors and the Imperial Fists claim to have come away from it with the victory. Though Rogal Dorn was lost to the Imperium subsequent to the war-torn age of the Horus Heresy, his legacy remains one of the strongest of all the Primarchs. The Imperial Fists sired 3 second founding successor chapters: the Imperial Fists themselves, the Crimson Fists, and the Black Templars. Between them, these 3 chapters hold as many battle honours as dozens of later created Adeptus Astartes formations, and their brethren have served with skill and distinction on countless thousands of battlefields across the galaxy. The Imperial Fists are one of the most valiant of all chapters, held as paragons of the principles set down in the Codex Astartes and exemplars of everything to which a Space Marine is heir. The Imperial Fists stand as the steadfast defenders of the Imperium and the Emperor's unwavering shield. For 10,000 standard years they have been the bulwark against which the armies of traitors and aliens have shattered. While Rogal Dorn is lost, Dorn's final moments were of courage and supreme sacrifice, and this example still drives the Imperial Fists onwards to fresh victories. Indeed, if the Imperial Fists have a fault, it is that they continue to strive when others would yield or withdraw. Such unquestioning steadfastness has rescued many a victory from the ashes of defeat, but only at a steep cost in lives. Raising the Imperial Fists. If the Emperor was the father of the Legiones Astartes, then Terra was their mother. Just as the Emperor shaped his warriors with his will and intellect, so too did Terra leave her mark on the warriors raised from her soil. These marks, or scars it might be more accurate to say, often shaped a Space Marine's Legion's culture, values, and methods of war in ways as subtle and deep as the mysteries woven into their flesh. To understand how many of the legions became as they were, one must first understand Terra. Soaked in blood, ignorance, and atrocity, old Earth in the time before the rise of the Emperor was devoid of hope and existed in a state of darkness. The only order was that of tyrants, fleeting and tainted by madness and petty ambition. The Emperor changed that. First with his hosts forged from the techno-barbarian tribes who took up his banner, then with his army of gene-forged Thunder Warriors, then with the creation of the Legiones Astartes. With blood and fire, he tamed Terra, bringing order and enlightenment where before there had been none. It was this transformation that the 7th Legion was made to protect. The first battalions of the Imperial Fists were raised from across Terra, as shown by their earliest battle honour, Roma. While many other legions drew their recruits from a particular ethnic or national source, the flesh of the 7th Legion came from the people of Terra as a whole. Even in domains where other legions had rites of tithe, the Imperial Fists took some of the youths as initiates. Often these would be those who exhibited the greatest capacity for endurance, both in mind and body. Many were of a taciturn nature, slow to talk, but quick to act. Why so many of such a wide pool of recruits should be similar is unclear. Certainly, the process used to activate the Imperial Fist's gene seed seemed to have inflicted intense pain, and so perhaps it was a purposeful selection of stock suited to surviving the augmentation process. It is also possible that a pattern of recruitment once formed perpetuated until it was tradition. No matter the reason, the grim nature of those recruited into the 7th Legion was well suited to their use. Unyielding conquest. In war, the Imperial Fists were concerned with conquest. While all of the Emperor's forces fought and died to expand the Imperium, many saw only part of the greater vision. Defeat the enemy, tear down their strongholds, break their beliefs, and still you would have a land that could turn against the Imperium in the future, or provide other enemies with a weakness to strike at. Victory was not enough. To conquer, one had not only to defeat one's enemies, but to hold the fruits of that victory. This philosophy underpinned every action of the Imperial Fists. In attack, they would pay any price in their own blood to secure victory, and once they had victory, they would begin to consolidate what they had taken. This pattern can be seen time and time again in the later conquest of ancient Terra. It was the VII Legion which broke the cities of the Crystal Sea, and then razed the fortress of the Fifth Circle from their ruins. In the ice-warped pinnacles of Himalaya, the Himalayan mountains, they lost 3 battalions to secure the defeat of the witchery of the Windcaller clans, but the first Imperial bastions began to rise against the cold sky within solar days of that victory. Across Terra, the fruits of their fortress craft gazed down on those who dwelt in the land around, a constant sign that the strength with which had conquered them remained, rooted into the earth. In the first solar decade of their existence, the Imperial Fists raised 600 citadels upon the lands they conquered. It is said that the dead of the Legion lie still in the foundations of each, their skulls and blood mingling with the stone and mortar of their walls. With these bastions pinning the conquered lands to the Imperium, order would spread amongst the people of the new domains. The old ways would change, fall, or be replaced by the new, and if they did not, then the looming fortress would answer the question of what the response to rebellion would be. The Imperial Fists were more than builders and castellans. At their root, they were the most direct expression of the Emperor's design of uniting humanity, for they were crusaders. Fortresses solidified conquest, and the 7th Legion sought conquest with a focused hunger. While fortresses and ordered domains sprang up in their wake, the Imperial Fists would never linger, but were always moving on, invading uncompliant domains and pushing the frontiers even as they reinforced what they had just taken. Massed shock assaults, using the full array of weaponry within the Legion, typified the 7th Legion's approach to war. Multiple battalions often took to the field en masse, breaking enemies with hammer blow force. On the plains of Kennestar, the 5th Battalion of the Imperial Fists broke the lines of the Tyrancy with an arrowhead of 50 war machines. It is said that the dust cloud thrown up in their wake blotted out the sun. In the tunnels of Galabaz, they cracked the crust above the buried city and dropped into the exposed tunnels beneath, while the explosions were still echoing across the mountains. But always, in the wake of the destruction they wrought, they replaced what they had broken with something stronger. It was from these early conquests that the Imperial Fists acquired its name. When many looked on the lands taken by the Imperial Fists, they said it was as if the hand of the Emperor had descended and gripped with an unbreakable fist. The description of the service done by the 7th Legion must have pleased the Emperor, for he personally decreed that they would be known from then on as the Imperial Fists, and bestowed on them the right to bear the laurels of victory as part of their heraldry. Dutiful and taciturn as ever, it is said that the renamed Imperial Fists accepted their honours in humble silence. Primarchs are transcendent beings, holding a portion of the sublime and unknowable in their nature. All the qualities which seem strong in a warrior of a Space Marine Legion exist more strongly, more deeply, and with greater subtlety in a Primarch. Though spun from the seed of humanity, the Primarchs are not human. This nature often seems to enhance and focus the qualities gifted to a legion by their gene seed. So it is that at the moment at which Primarch and Legion unite, there is often a point at which a legion's character may seem to shift. In the case of the Imperial Fists, the discovery of their Primarch and the planet and culture which had raised him only strengthened the character the Imperial Fists had shown since their creation. When the 20 genetically engineered nascent Primarchs were stolen from the Emperor's labs on Terra by the machinations of the ruinous powers and cast into the warp, they were scattered throughout the galaxy upon different worlds. This would come to shape the nature of each Primarch and later the individual legions created from their genomes. When the Primarch Rogal Dorn was restored to the Imperium, it was to be known on the ice world of Inwit, located in the Inwit cluster of the Segmentum Tempestus. Whilst on the planet, the light side of Inwit offers little more comfort than the dark, being a land of drift-crusted saline seas and sparse bare rock under the unblinking gaze of the red sun. There is little of value on Inwit. Its seas are buried or lifeless, its mountains bare of riches and its native species vicious. There is, however, one thing that this harsh world produces that led it to conquer a star cluster and endure as an island empire of order in the Age of Strife: its people. Long ago, before the coming of the Emperor was even a dream on night-shrouded Terra, the people of Inwit began to create their own realm in the stars. On every world they took, they assimilated, realigned, and reinforced. With each conquest, their culture and learning grew, but Inwit itself remained unchanged even as it became the centre of a small stellar empire. The ice hives and clan disputes remained, and while their world birthed starships and ringed its orbits with weapon stations, its rulers kept to the old ways, the ways that had created their strength, the warlords and matriarchs who commanded armies amongst the stars still living lives little easier than their vassals. So it was, and so it is now. It was part of this burgeoning empire that Rogal Dorn grew to manhood, and then to rule its domains as Emperor of the Inwit cluster. Much of his early years remains unknown, or as least little talked about. What is known is that from the cold and darkness of Inwit, the boy, named Rogal by his adopted kin, rose to lead the House of Dawn of the Ice Caste, and then to rule the entire Inwit cluster. The patriarch of the clan that raised Dorn became an adoptive grandfather to him, and taught him much of the tactics, strategy, and diplomacy. Even after he discovered he was not blood-related to his grandfather, Dorn held his memory in high value. He kept a fur-edged robe that had belonged to the man and slept with it on his bed every night. Dorn's personal qualities married perfectly with those of Inwit, and he pushed their empire further than any other, ordered and trained its armies, and fashioned spacecraft the like of which had never been seen before. Coming of the Emperor. 40 standard years after his grandfather's death, the outlying Imperial starships of the Great Crusade finally reached the ice hives of Inwit in 835.M30. When the true Emperor was reunited with Rogal Dorn, he regained not only a lost son, but the strength of a star-spanning society already forged into a tool of war. Dorn greeted the Emperor at the helm of the enormous starship constructed during the Dark Age of technology called the Phalanx, that he had discovered within Inwit's region of space. Dorn became the 7th of the 20 Primarchs who had been found by their father. The Emperor welcomed Dorn as his long-lost son, and returned the Phalanx to his care, transforming it into the mobile fortress-monastery of the 7th Space Marine Legion that was also turned over by the Emperor to Dorn to lead, since all of its Astartes had been created using Dorn's own genetic template. Dorn himself was fiercely loyal to the Emperor from the first moment that they met on the Bridge of the Phalanx, and he never once sought any favour from his Gene father. Dorn embodied the human quest for truth, and could never tell a lie, even if it would have aided his cause. Because of this quality, Dorn's statue stands as one of only 4 ever erected on Macragge, next to that of Rabut Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines. Dorn commanded the 7th Legion and its expeditionary fleets with peerless devotion and military genius. It was said that he possessed one of the finest military minds amongst the Primarchs, ordered and disciplined, but still inclined to flashes of zeal and inspiration. His record of achievements for the Imperium during the Great Crusade were innumerable, and indeed the War Master Horus thought of the esteemed Dorn and the Imperial Fists so highly that he reckoned if the Fists, noted masters of defence, were to hold a fortress against he and his Lunar Wolves, noted masters of assault, the resultant conflict would spiral into a never-ending stalemate. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please give it a like if you enjoyed it, and if not, tell me below what I should do differently next time. My name is George, this is Jam Punch, and I will see you next time.